I'll pay you when I grow up." The small, trembling voice cut through the freezing air inside the grocery store like a knife. Everything went silent. Only the low hum of the security camera on the ceiling and the cold plastic scent of the rain-slick floor remained. Nathaniel Nate Whitaker was once called the anonymous billionaire by the press for avoiding every spotlight turned around. His eyes landed on a thin little girl, no more than 8 years old, clutching a newborn wrapped in a worn-out bath towel, Maya Whitfield. Her hair was matted into messy clumps. Her hands were cracked. The t-shirt she wore was stained, and her jeans were torn at the knees. In her arms, the baby Ethan Cole whimpered, his cry stifled by hunger and cold. Outside, the December wind in San Diego burned the skin, but inside the store, the cold was sharper, sinking into the bones. The cashier frowned, his voice curt. "This isn't a daycare. Get out!" Maya flinched. She held Ethan tighter, lowered her head, and turned to leave. Her shoulders trembled, not from fear, but from the humiliation of being shamed in front of everyone. Nate stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "She didn't steal anything." The cashier looked up, startled. "Mr. Whitaker, but just look at her. I'll decide that myself." Nate cut in. From the magazine rack, a woman whispered, "That kid sleeps under Bayview Bridge." A man by the refrigerator added, "Heard her dad's in prison. Mom's not all there. Poor thing." Nate crouched down to eye level with Maya, his voice softening. "What's your name, Ma?" "Maya." Her voice was quiet, avoiding his gaze. "And the baby, my brother, Ethan, 1 year old." Nate narrowed his eyes. "You walked here? In this cold?" Maya nodded. "Ran out of milk since yesterday. Ethan's been crying all night. I waited until Mom was asleep before I left. She yells a lot. I didn't want her to come." Nate glanced at the thin towel wrapped around the baby. "No coat." Maya shook her head. "I wrapped Ethan in this. It's the only warm thing we have at home." He stood up. In his mind, the calculations that once built a multi-billion-dollar empire now revolved around a single question. What do you do when a child in front of you is braver than most adults you've ever met? It's not just milk. Nate said, "Stay close to me." He grabbed a gallon of milk, a box of baby formula, bread, wet wipes, and canned soup, added diapers, wool socks, at the checkout counter. Maya had to stretch to place the milk bottle on the counter. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I'll pay you back. When I grow up." Nate nodded. "I believe you." When they stepped outside, the ocean wind slapped their faces. Maya blinked quickly to keep her tears from freezing. "Where do you live?" Nate asked. Pausing for a beat, Maya answered, "Under Bayview Bridge, in the dry corner behind the pipe. I keep Ethan warm with a newspaper. Don't let anyone see." A passing woman overheard and gasped quietly. Nate looked at her, but she turned away. "Want me to take you back?" Nate asked. "People yell when they see me carrying him. But if you come, just don't talk loudly. My mom gets scared easily." They walked. The rumble of cars overhead echoed down. The smell of oil, damp concrete, and trash mingled in the air. Nate took off his wool coat and draped it over Maya's shoulders. She stared wide-eyed but didn't resist. Under a torn sheet of plastic, a woman lay curled up. Danielle Whitfield, Maya's mother, looked up, her eyes vacant. "Mom, it's me. Someone's helping," Maya said softly. Danielle's voice was hoarse. "You're not supposed to leave." Nate stepped back, keeping his distance. She just wanted to help, he said quietly. Danielle said nothing. Maya handed Ethan to her mother, then turned back to Nate. You can go now. Just needed the milk. Nate didn't leave. I'll come back tomorrow. Okay. Maya tilted her head. Why? Slowly, he answered. Because someone should. That night, in his luxurious penthouse, Nate couldn't sleep. He knew that somewhere under Bayview Bridge, a little girl was softly singing to her baby brother wrapped in his coat. If this story touches you, please subscribe to The Soft Why to hear more journeys that move the heart. The next morning, Nate left the apartment before the sun had a chance to tint the horizon pink. He wore jeans, a navy sweater, and a heavy parka. No tie, no suit jacket. Just an ordinary man among the rush of San Diego locals searching for their morning coffee. When the black SUV turned onto Jefferson Avenue, the Bayview Bridge appeared, still cloaked in a damp layer of night fog. Trash sat untouched in the gutter, and the roar of trucks rumbled above. Nate stopped at the driest corner under the bridge. The old sheet of plastic was still there. The battered shopping cart held a few scattered belongings, and laid out on the piece of flattened cardboard, Maya was sleeping. Ethan was pressed tight against her chest, like a second heartbeat. He walked slowly, trying to keep his footsteps from echoing too loudly. Maya's eyes snapped open immediately. Quick, sharp, like a small creature long used to defending itself. You came back. Her voice was hoarse from the cold. I told you I would. Ethan was still clutching the corner of Nate's wool sweater from the day before. He cries less now. The milk helped a lot. Maya whispered. Nate pulled a thermos from his bag. Hot cocoa. Not too sweet. Maya's eyes lit up like sunlight breaking through fog. She carefully twisted the lid open, inhaled deeply, then took a sip. Tastes like Christmas. That's the idea. Nate smiled. A sound from behind the plastic sheet made Nate tense. A woman stepped out, her hair tangled, her eyes squinting against the light. Danielle Whitfield. Her hand braced against the wall as if searching for balance. You again. I brought breakfast. Nate held up a paper bag. Danielle glanced at it, lips pressed together. Egg sandwiches and 2 blankets. I know blankets don't fix everything, but they help. She let out a short laugh, but without humor. Rich people always think handing out blankets is enough. No. Nate nodded, but they're warm. He set the bag down and stepped back. Danielle pulled out one sandwich, passed it to Maya, then took a bite of the other. You should stop coming here, she said between chews. You don't belong here. Neither do you. Nate answered immediately. Danielle paused, her gaze meeting his, both weary and defiant. You have no idea where I belong. True, but I'd like to know. The air between them tightened. Maya spoke up, her voice small but steady. Mom, he talks to me like a real person, not like those people at the donation place. Danielle didn't respond. She sat down, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, and quietly finished the sandwich. Nate tried to break the silence. Do you have any children besides Maya and Ethan? No. Any other family? No one left. Danielle's tone was curt. They sat there, the only sound the traffic from above. Finally, she looked up. If you want to help, don't just bring food. Bring me a way out. Nate froze. That wasn't a small request. It wasn't something you could pick up at a grocery store. I'm not looking for charity. Danielle continued. I want a chance. That's all. Nate nodded slowly. I understand. No, not yet. But maybe you're trying. He stood, brushing dust from his knees. There's a motel 3 blocks from here. I'll cover a room for you and the kids for a week. Safe door, hot water. Danielle's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? No catch. No thank you needed. I just want Maya and Ethan to sleep on clean sheets. A long pause. Then she gave a slight nod. Fine. But if you're lying, or turn this into some power play, I'm not, Nate said firmly. As they packed their things, Nate called to book the room. The 3 of them left the space beneath the Bayview Bridge, Maya holding his hand the whole way, saying nothing as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The door to the room opened, not big, not new, but warm. Maya stood in the middle, turning slowly, afraid that if she closed her eyes, it would vanish. It's warm, she whispered. Nate leaned against the doorway, smiling. That's the heater. Old, but good. In the corner, Danielle dropped her bag on the table, her eyes still half wary, half exhausted. Nate left a duffel with towels, soap, toothbrushes, and fresh diapers. He wasn't expecting thanks. He knew. Trust took time. Maya lay Ethan on the bed, tucking the blanket around him. His breathing began to steady. Nate crossed his arms. I'll check in tomorrow. You'll have your own space. The front desk won't ask questions. Danielle tilted her head. You do this often. No. First time. You don't seem like someone who softens easily. I'm not. She looked straight at him. Then why? Nate was quiet for a few seconds, then said, because I can, and because I should have done this a long time ago. That night, Nate returned to his apartment with a strange feeling. Not the satisfaction of having done a good deed, but something harder to name, as if he had just stepped onto a road with no clear end. He poured himself a glass of scotch, then left it untouched on the table. In his jacket pocket, a crumpled napkin appeared. On it, Maya had drawn a tall man holding the hand of a little girl and carrying a baby. Above it, in messy letters, was the word home. Nate smoothed the paper flat and set it next to his phone. The city lights streamed through the window, but in his mind, there was only the image of Maya's wary brown eyes and Danielle's half-trusting, half-doubting nod. The next morning, Nate went back to the motel. The door to the room was slightly ajar. He knocked softly. No answer. When he pushed the door open, the room was tidied in an oddly precise way. The blanket neatly folded, toiletries still in their bag. Empty. He felt a heaviness drop into his stomach. At the front desk, he asked, and the clerk replied. The woman came down early, checked out, didn't say why. Nate thanked them, but his heartbeat had already picked up. He got in his car and drove along the streets around Bayview Overpass, stopping at every shelter and every food station. No sign. By afternoon, he reached an old community center with peeling red brick walls. The young volunteer at the reception frowned when he described them. Could be them, a girl about 8, carrying her baby brother. I came by yesterday for diapers and then left. Said to ask about a food distribution near Hamilton Park. It was only a thin lead, but Nate followed it. The sky was turning gold when he reached Hamilton Park. A few pigeons circled over the patchy grass. Then he heard it, a faint humming, like a lullaby. Walking around a low hedge, he saw Maya sitting on the ground, holding Ethan in her lap. Maya. Nate called softly. Her small shoulders jolted. Then she turned, eyes wide. You found me. He knelt down. Ethan lay still, his cheeks flushed from the cold. Where's your mom? Maya looked down at the ground. Went to find medicine for Ethan since morning, and you've been here, alone? She nodded. She told me to wait. I'm waiting. The wind cut sharper. Nate gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. We're not sleeping out here tonight. But we'll leave a note. Your mom will know where to find you. He lifted Ethan, feeling that small weight press against his chest. Maya walked quietly beside him, her tiny hand gripping the hem of his coat. Not the motel. This time, he brought them to his penthouse. When the elevator doors opened, there was polished wood flooring, high ceilings, and glass walls facing the ocean. Maya froze. Your home. And tonight, it's yours too. She looked around as if afraid she'd stepped into a dream. Is there a room for me? 3 bedrooms? You can pick the one with the big window. He set Ethan down on the couch and pulled a blanket gently over the boy. We'll get everything sorted. You're safe here. Maya pressed her lips together, and for the first time, tears fell. Not loud, not panicked, just the release of something that had been held too tightly for too long. Nate stood there, silent. He knew tonight. A door had opened. Not just for Maya, but for himself. Nate didn't sleep much that night. He sat in the armchair by the window, watching the San Diego lights ripple across the black ocean. In the living room, the sound of the 2 children's breathing blended with the hum of the heater. For the first time, there was no wind whistling through concrete cracks, no engines echoing from above the bridge. But Danielle still hadn't come back. The image of that woman's eyes, distant, shoulders thin, and that cautious nod wouldn't leave his mind. Around 3 Urua, Nate picked up the phone and called Sam Granger, an old friend and former police officer. Sam, I need to find someone. Fast! Sam exhaled, his voice raspy with sleep. Who is it? Danielle Whitfield, mother of Maya and Ethan. She might be looking for medicine, maybe disoriented. The next morning, Maya was already up. She stood on a stool in the kitchen, staring intently at the bread in the toaster as if it were magic. Good morning, Nate said softly. Mom says, if someone gives you a roof, you have to give them a reason not to regret it. Maya shrugged. So, I made breakfast. Nate smiled and poured coffee. They ate in silence for a while before he asked, Do you miss your mom? Maya nodded, but her eyes stayed steady. Mom will come back. She always does. Just sometimes longer than I want. Sam called mid-morning. Got news. She was seen near a closed clinic on Maple Street, asking for children's medicine. When the police arrived, she took off. Nate gripped the phone. Where is she now? We figure she'll go somewhere she used to hang around. There's an abandoned church near Bayview, and the little girl once said her mom liked listening to the choir there. That afternoon, Nate drove to the old church. The wind blew through broken window panes, carrying the scent of sea salt and rotting wood. On the side of the building, Danielle was sitting on the cold cement, holding a baby bottle with a cracked cap. Her eyes were empty. Nate approached slowly and knelt down to her level. Maya and Ethan are safe, at my place. She blinked, as if needing time to believe it. I didn't mean to leave them. It's just, I heard the baby coughing, and her voice broke. No need to explain. I understand. Her hands trembled from both the cold and exhaustion. Why did you still come looking for me? Lots of people would have walked away. Because I promised your daughter, and because I don't want you to go back under that bridge. Her gaze wavered. Then, very slowly, she nodded. When they walked into the penthouse, Maya was sitting and playing with a puzzle. She looked up, then ran to the door. Mom. Mother and daughter hugged so tightly that there was no space left between their small bodies. Ethan woke up and began to cry. Danielle picked him up, pressing her face into the soft baby hair. He's heavier now, she said with a faint smile, a flicker of light in her eyes for the first time. Nate stepped back, giving them space, but inside his chest, a strange warmth rose, something he hadn't felt in a long time. They had lunch together, a simple meal of tomato soup and toasted bread. Danielle ate slowly, as if relearning what peace felt like. This isn't forever, right? She asked. Only until you're ready to move forward. Nate replied, because I want to find a place of my own, not just be taken in. I know, and I'll help. Maya smiled at Nate from across the table, a smile no longer guarded like the first time they met. That afternoon, the San Diego sky turned gray, the marine clouds hanging heavy as if about to burst. Nate checked the windows and turned on the extra heating in the living room. Danielle was folding clothes for Maya and Ethan. Every movement of hers was still careful, as if afraid someone might say, "Don't touch that." Ethan slept peacefully in the baby rocker Nate had bought that morning. Maya sat on the rug, drawing with a brand new set of colored pencils. When Nate leaned down to take a look, she held up her picture of a house with large windows. Inside were 3 people and a baby. At the bottom, she had written in bold letters, "Trying." "Looks great," Nate said. Maya shrugged, but the corners of her mouth lifted. "I draw when I'm scared. It helps me feel less worried." A knock at the door cut in. Nate glanced at the security camera. Sam Granger stood outside, wearing a black coat, his face tense. "What's going on?" Nate opened the door. Sam stepped in, lowering his voice. "A man's been asking about Danielle and the kids at the shelters. Didn't leave a name, just said, there's a debt to collect." Danielle froze mid-fold. Did he have a long scar across his eye? Sam nodded. "Yeah." She swallowed hard. "Marcus Cole." Nate understood immediately that this was Ethan's father. "He's threatened you before. More than once. When I was pregnant, he disappeared. When I gave birth, he came back, demanded money, said he'd take back his son if I didn't pay." The air in the room thickened. Maya looked at her mother, worried. Nate stepped closer, kneeling down to meet the girl's eyes. "You heard that, didn't you?" Maya gave a small nod. "It's okay. Here, no one can hurt you or your brother," Sam said. "We should report this and get a restraining order right away." Danielle hesitated, then nodded. "But don't let Maya see the police. She's been through enough." That night, after Maya was asleep, Danielle and Nate sat out on the balcony. The city lights reflected in the cup of hot tea she held. "I used to think being strong meant staying quiet, never asking for help," she said. "And now, maybe being strong is letting someone see you when you're breaking." Nate looked at her profile, seeing the exhaustion but also a new flicker, a cautious kind of hope. "Aren't you afraid?" Danielle asked. "Of course, but I'm more afraid of giving up." She gave a faint smile. Sounds like something from a book. No, it's just the truth. The next morning, Sam took Danielle to the police station to file for the restraining order against Marcus Cole. Nate stayed home with Maya and Ethan. They built a pillow fort on the floor and turned on old cartoons. Maya laughed out loud, a rare sound that made Nate smile without thinking. By noon, Danielle was back, holding a document envelope. It's done. They said it should be processed within a day. Nate nodded. Good. One more layer of protection. But in her eyes, the worry hadn't faded. Marcus doesn't care about the law. Whatever he wants, he'll find a way. Then he'll have to get through me first, Nate said without hesitation. Maya walked over and pressed a paper butterfly folded from her notebook cover into her mother's hand. They say butterflies mean a new beginning, she whispered. Danielle hugged her daughter. In that moment, Nate knew this fight wasn't just about protecting a family. It was about holding on to the fragile thing they'd just begun to find again, the feeling of safety. 2 days after filing the application, the morning in the penthouse began quietly. Sunlight slanted through the glass windows, casting a glow across the polished wooden floor. Maya was using colored pencils to add more color to her trying drawing. Ethan was lying on the rug, his tiny hands waving in the air. Nate was making coffee when the landline rang. It was the building's security, his voice urgent. Mr. Whitaker, there's a man in the lobby. Says his name is Marcus Cole. Asking about a woman and 2 kids. Nate set the cup down, calm but with a shadow in his eyes. Keep him there. Don't let him up. And call Sam Granger immediately. Danielle stepped out from the bedroom, stopping when she saw his expression. He's here. Nate nodded. In the lobby. Security's holding him. Maya looked up, fear flashing in her eyes. Nate immediately reassured her. You and Ethan go into the room. Lock the door. Don't come out until your mom or I call. When Nate reached the lobby, Marcus was standing near the door, tall and lean, his eyes scanning the space like a predator. He wore a gray hoodie, hands in his pockets, a smirk curling his lips. Who are you? Marcus asked, his tone full of provocation. I'm the one making sure you never get near Danielle or the kids again? Marcus scoffed. Little Ethan is my son. I have the right you threw away when you abandoned them. Nate cut in, his voice sharp as a blade. You want to test legal rights? I've got the best attorney in the city and a restraining order about to be signed? He stepped forward, but 2 security guards immediately blocked him. You think money buys everything? Marcus snarled. No, but it buys enough to keep you out of their lives forever. Sam appeared, his hand resting casually near the badge on his belt. Mr. Cole, here's some advice. Leave now, unless you want to spend tonight in a cell. Marcus gave Nate one last look, full of hatred, then turned toward the door. This isn't over, he threw back. When Nate returned, Danielle was in the kitchen, her hands gripping the marble counter, her face pale. He's gone, Nate said quietly. Marcus won't stop. He'll find another way. Then we'll get ahead of him. Maya came out, still clutching her paper butterfly. Is he coming back? Nate knelt down. Maybe. But you'll always be safe here. I promise. That night, rain began to fall over the city. The sound drummed against the glass, streetlights reflecting in long streaks across the floor. Danielle sat on the sofa, Ethan asleep in her arms. You don't have to do all this, she said hoarsely. I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. Because I saw Maya shivering in the wind, and I couldn't turn away. She looked down at the sleeping baby. I'm afraid. If he comes back, I'll have to run again. No. This time, we don't run. This time, he's the one who leaves. The next morning, Sam called. Good news and bad news. The good news is that the restraining order has been signed. The bad news is that Marcus was spotted hanging around an elementary school a few blocks away. No direct violation yet, but it's suspicious. Nate listened, his gaze lowering. Keep someone on him. I want to know his every move. Already on it. When Danielle heard, she sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. Part of me wants him to disappear, but another part wants to look him straight in the eye and tell him he has no power over me anymore. Nate tilted his head, studying her for a long moment. If that day comes, I'll be right there beside you. She lifted her head, and in her tired eyes, something new appeared resolve. Marcus might not be gone yet, but Danielle was no longer the trembling woman under the Bayview Bridge. 3 days later, a message from Sam came in close to midnight. Nate, he's on the move, heading to Hamilton Park. Nate put on his coat and turned to Danielle. We need to end this. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. I want to go. Hamilton Park at night was damp, the smell of soil mixing with the chill from the sea. The streetlights were a sickly yellow, tree shadows stretching long like skeletal arms. Marcus stood at the edge of the grass, leaning against a lamppost, smoking. When he saw Danielle emerge from the darkness, he flicked the cigarette away and crushed it under his shoe. Danielle. He drew out her name. I knew you'd have to come. Not because of you, she replied, her voice flat. But because I wanted to say this directly, you have no rights here anymore. Marcus scoffed. Ethan is my blood. Blood doesn't give you the right to be a father. Actions do. And you've never earned that. He stepped forward, but Nate was already standing in front of him. I think you've been warned enough. Marcus squinted. Who do you think you are? Some kind of savior? No, just someone who won't let you destroy another family. Sam appeared from the other side of the park, hand on his radio. 2 officers came up, flashlights aimed straight at Marcus. Marcus Cole, Sam said clearly. You are violating a restraining order. You are under arrest. Marcus laughed, but didn't resist when they cuffed him. Before being led away, he looked back. Danielle, you'll regret. No. She cut in, her eyes never leaving his. I just took a boulder off my neck. Back at the penthouse, the 3 of them sat in the living room without turning on the lights. Only the city's glow spilled in through the glass. Maya's head rested on her mother's shoulder. Ethan asleep in Nate's arms. Danielle spoke softly. I thought I'd shake when I saw him, but all I felt was empty and lighter. Nate looked at her. That's because you won. Not against him. Against the fear. She smiled. Barely more than a breath. Maybe. A week later, the news reported that Marcus Cole had been sentenced to a short prison term for violating the restraining order and other related charges. Danielle didn't watch TV. She was on the balcony, trimming the little potted plants Maya had brought home from school. Nate came out with 2 cups of tea. What are you going to do next? Start over in Hillcrest, or anywhere the kids can run around without me jumping at every sound. He nodded. I'll help you find a place, but the choice is yours. Maya came running out, handing her mother a piece of paper. I finished it. On it were messy lines of writing. Family is a place of safety, not a place you're scared of. Danielle hugged her daughter, her eyes wet but no tears falling. You're right. That evening, after the kids were asleep, Danielle sat at the dining table and laid out a blank sheet of paper. Do you think, if I wrote my story, anyone would read it? Yes, Nate answered without hesitation. And it will reach the people who need to hear it. She picked up the pen and wrote the first line, I once lived under the Bayview Bridge, and a stranger didn't turn away. Nate poured more tea and sat quietly, letting her write. The space was calm now, but not the silence of fear. It was rare peace, and they both knew it had been bought with a great deal of courage. In one corner of the living room, Maya's trying painting hung neatly on the wall. It was no longer just a child's drawing. It was a reminder every day they were still trying, and that trying had turned into a new life. Their story wasn't over, but for the first time, it was no longer a story about running away. It was a story about standing tall. If this story touched you, subscribe to The Soft Why to hear more journeys of turning pain into strength.